And it makes complete sense when you're burnt out and you're a parent who is exhausted. You just want things to go smooth. You want things to go quick. You don't want to have to sit there and think about it. I get it. It makes total sense. Hiya, homie. Welcome to the Reclaimed Woman, the podcast that's part healing circle, part nervous system decoder, and part thank God it is not just me, mom chat. I'm Jessica, mom, cycle breaker, holistic family guide, recovering overthinker and people pleaser, and someone who has definitely felt like a bad mom more times than I would love to put on public record. Around here, we go way deeper than parenting tips. We talk about what's happening underneath the meltdowns and the chaos, yours and theirs. The overstimulation, the shame spirals, the childhood wounds that sneak into your parenting, the emotional load that makes you feel like you are drowning, and the parts of you that are trying so freaking hard to hold everything together without a village. This isn't the place for perfect moms. This is the place for real ones, human beings, for the women who are trying to break cycles, build a healthier foundation for her family, and actually reclaim herself in the process, even when it feels messy, confusing, and downright overwhelming and uncomfortable. If you've been carrying everything alone, questioning yourself, or quietly wondering if you're failing, you are not. You're overwhelmed and maybe even burnt out, and you are in the exact right place. Here we go, friend. Today is going to feel like a huge exhale, but also kind of like a slap in the face in the best way. I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a 2026 forecast for motherhood. And I'm not talking trends that are like what color cabinets are in or what style of yoga pants are acceptable. More like what is shifting in our nervous systems, our relationships, our parenting, and our culture, really, and why we are feeling this in our bones. People are craving. And I need you to hear me before we start. Trends are not what's cool. I mean, that's what people position them as, but trends are literally what people are craving, what they're searching, and what they're being drawn to. They're like cultural symptoms, a giant collective of something's not working. And when I look at what's coming up for 2026, from actual research groups like public health guidance, mental health platforms, of course, Pinterest and social media behavior, it all points to one thing. Moms are done performing. We want peace. We want support. We want connection. We want boundaries that actually hold. And we want parenting advice that doesn't sound like a religion, a cult, or a guilt trip. So I'm going to walk you through the 2026 shifts that I'm seeing pulled from a bunch of different sources, and I will list them in the show notes. And I'm going to tell you what I think is happening psychologically underneath the Pinterest trends also, because Pinterest is where people kind of search their needs and give you a little hint into their minds and what they're looking for before they actually say them out loud. All right, let's get to the main plot. So trend number 1, parent mental health is going to stop being a side quest. It is going to be the whole damn plot. There is going to be so much more main character energy when it comes to mental health and our healing. So first, it's going to be treated like a real issue and it's not a personal failure. And thank God, because just be more patient or, shut your mouth. That whole era, it was actually destroying not only women, but people in general. And this is showing up in our public health messaging, like the Surgeon General's whole thing basically being parenting well. This is showing up in public health messaging. Like the Surgeon General's whole thing is basically parent well-being is tied to child well-being. And if parents are drowning, then the kids are feeling it. And you're not going to save generations of people and break cycles if you're pushing so much onto your kids. All of this is not because moms are bad, but because biology and relationships and humanity is real. It's stuff we deal with every single day. We have a reality. And then we've got the national mood tracking, like Gallup, showing that people are reporting worse mental health, which is absolutely brutal, but also kind of relieving because it means that people are putting it out there instead of pretending and trying to hide those things. So even though these numbers are increasing, it's actually a positive thing because it's showing that more people are willing to sit with it and be honest about it. Translation, if you feel like you can't gentle parent your way out of burnout, it's because you can't. None of us can. When the culture stops glamorizing suffering, you actually see a rise in soft life, self-preservation, slow living, cozy home, quiet routines, nervous system regulation. All of those searches are within Pinterest, and they're not lazy. They're literally survival signals, and they're very real things that we're seeing. So with this trend, I want you to take this tool. So one of the things I find fascinating about this whole thing is the Pinterest part of it. With the Pinterest Predicts was sent out recently and what they're looking for in 2026. And when I started to look into that, I've heard other people talking about these trends, and I thought, how does this stuff relate to our world and our mental health and all of the things that are coming up in our society? And so I think it's interesting to note that there's actually a layer of psychology within that, Pinterest being a search engine. And for me, I talk about Pinterest because I can see those trends more. They're like more readily available to me, whereas obviously Google's a search engine. You know, there's many search engines, but for me, looking at the Pinterest world, since that's kind of been where I've been at lately, when a culture stops glamorizing all the suffering and the pushing down of our feelings and whatnot, you actually see a rise in keywords like soft life, self-preservation, slow living, cozy home, quiet routines, nervous system regulation. And all of those searches are literally survival signals. They are literally people saying, I need help with this and I can't do this anymore the way I've been going. For this trend, there is a wonderful tool when we talk about slowing down and just being the main character in your intentional life, being able to put your hand on your chest and one on your belly. And I know that feels so woo-woo when you're not used to that kind of stuff, but it does help. Taking a long exhale, making that exhale longer than your inhale, and holding it for, 2 counts. There's many, you can go online, there's many different types of breathing techniques, there's box breathing, there's ones that are like 6, 7, 8. There's so many different types. So you can find one that feels good and grounding to you. If you were going to make a resolution, keep it away from all the random crap about how you want to be this magical person that is just not achievable in one sitting or even in the few days before you burn out. Think about this year, what is one boundary that could lower my pressure by 10% for this whole year? Or you could even look at it as, this year I'm going to ask myself that every day or every week. Just find a timeline that makes sense to you and then think about that one boundary. The boundary needs to be something for you, not something they can do for you or what have you. It could look like, I'm not doing extra, right? I'm not doing extra. I'm not going to go overboard with all the things that I plan on doing, right? Maybe you think about like the second half of the school. Maybe you did like one too many bake sales in this last semester. And this semester, you're like, forget that. I am not getting on board with way more than I need to be. Or you could say no complicated dinners. Or you could say, I only am going to do a complicated dinner on a weekend when I know I have time to sleep in the next day, or I don't have to run my kids to a million things or whatever. Maybe you do it once a month. What is something that's going to look like for you? Maybe your phone goes away at 8 p.m. Maybe you wake up and you choose not to look at your phone first thing in the morning. Maybe you need 15 minutes alone after bedtime or before you tuck the kids in. Maybe you're like, I need time to wind down myself a little bit before we go into this bedtime routine, if your bedtime routines are difficult. So that tool for getting back into that main character energy of my mental health matters and I'm going to not treat it like a side quest anymore, that tool is that reset. It doesn't need to be a full life overhaul, just like a little bit, just a little drop. That's our goal. That's how we get to the achievable points, not making these big resolutions that just don't make sense for us because they're such a 180. It's every little intentional moment and baby step that we take towards being the person that we want to be and creating the home that we want to have. So trend number 2, the connection crisis is going to get louder. And I've got to tell you, I have been feeling this so hard this year. This year has been full of roller coaster up and downs, but I have felt this connection crisis so much. I feel like we're all in such a hurry that it's become very surface level and very shallow. I mean, for lack of a better term, it's become very shallow. Loneliness and disconnection are actually being named as actual stress drivers. The APA has been beating this drum. And when the big professional organizations make connection a theme, it's because that data is so freaking loud. And I remember there was the whole loneliness epidemic going on when COVID hit. We thought coming out of that, things were going to get better, but they are still very much a part of this. And in parenting, this is literally shifting the conversation from how do I optimize my kid to how do we actually like each other again as a family? Because a high achieving family can still be emotionally starving. They could have all of the things and be emotionally completely disconnected. And this is where the trends like pen pals, slow hobbies, family traditions, Sunday resets, friendship bracelets, handwritten letters, nostalgia, and all of those things make complete sense. When people crave connection, they crave tangible connection, something real, something slow, something that proves that you exist to someone, not these conversations in passing that really don't do much for anything, not where people don't see you and don't understand you. It's just being another person right now, walking around in a sea of people. And I think of that quote from Titanic when she's like, it's like I'm screaming at the top of my lungs and no one even looks up. I have felt that so hard lately. And I think a lot of people are. We feel so disconnected. So I'll say it again. We need something that proves we exist to someone. Your kid doesn't need a perfect mom. They need a regulated relationship. They need a connected relationship. Your spouse doesn't need a wife that's just here to do the dishes or, whatever. They need, provided you're in a healthy relationship, they need a wife that is there, that is connected, that sees and hears them and is intentional with them. Repairing is a complete flex. We are going to mess it up. You want a good flex? You brag all the time about how good you are at repairing your relationships, how good you are at apologizing, how good you are with being okay to say that you've messed up as a parent when we were raised with parents who would never admit their wrongs. Rituals are going to be a game changer. Forget a routine that's rigid, a ritual, something that's normalized, something that it has more of a flow than a specific routine. These are the things that are going to set you up for a well-connected relationship. Being available to co-regulate, being able to have the self-awareness to apologize, and being able to have rituals that support the connection in your family. There is a tool that can come with a reconnect ritual, and that is something like a 3-minute couch cuddle. Tell me your favorite part of the day. That is so simple and small, and it makes such a huge impact. And maybe your kids are older. Do the dishes with them. They don't want to do the chore, right? But if you do the dishes side by side, you can bump shoulders, you can chit chat, you can ask intentional questions while you do a seemingly mindless activity. You can listen to a song together, let them pick it. And so you can hear kind of like what represents their mood. Like put on a song that represented your mood today or your day at school or whatever. A silly handshake. Let me tell you, kids eat that up. There's so many small things that could be just a ritual that you have. And it doesn't need to be rigid. It can just be something that, like, when we're feeling disconnected, we do the dishes together and we talk about our day. When we're feeling disconnected, we walk the dog together and we talk about our dreams of the future. Or I share stories about my childhood, or I share a secret fear I have. It's not about perfection. It's about that repeated connection, because that's depositing into your child. And the more you deposit, the more you're building up that connection with them. Now, trend number 3 is probably one that just, I don't know, it just makes my heart so happy because it's spicy, but it's true. The gentle parenting means never say no era is dying. And I am here for that funeral. I will throw a party and celebrate that funeral. Parents are tired and they're realizing empathy without limits is pure chaos, and limits without empathy is fear. And there has to be something in the middle. So people are moving towards a hybrid parenting, kind and firm, not permissive cosplay, but something that at its core is loving and caring and controlled and structured without being disrespectful. You can be kind and firm. That is not confusing. It is leadership. Research shared an article, and it's about cycle breaking. Basically, taking top priority. And it said a survey of 2,000 parents of children ages 0 to 6 found that modern parents are using new styles focused on healing generational trauma or cycle breaking, forming strong emotional bonds or attachment, and prioritizing real world consequences or cause and effect. Despite Gen Z being the first generation raised with gentle parenting in mind, only 32% employ this approach as parents. Instead, they're leaning more towards cycle breaking parenting. That is freaking huge because regardless of what it looks like to gentle parent or what kind of foggy, blurred lines come with that gentle parenting, knowing that you want to break a cycle is a massive improvement. So if you did have a quote unquote gentle parent that was more hands off and actually permissive, but considered themselves a gentle parent, you might break that cycle of saying, my parents kind of let me do whatever I want. And I want to make sure that I am breaking cycles of absence or no structure. And I think it's really beautiful if you look at all of the generational cycles that we shift. Every parent has them, and some are bigger than others, but every parent has something that they want to change for their kids. And so if you're just shifting it into a cycle breaking parenting and you're looking at the whole of a child, you're going to be way better off for it. A lot of Gen Z parents, it said, believe that gentle parenting only works for some situations and it has its time and place. But still, those younger parents believe that the approach needs to be blended with other styles. And I believe that to be true because if we look at the different types of parenting, so there's authoritative, well, let me start here. There's authoritarian parenting, and that's like the very strict, get your butt beat, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Like that is authoritarian parenting. Then there is permissive parenting, which is very hands off. It's high empathy and kindness. And they want to be soft with their kids, but it leans into too soft and there's no structure. There's neglectful, of course, where that just kind of speaks for itself. And then there's the authoritative. And so if we remove the term of gentle parenting in general and just discuss authoritative parenting, if you were to make a big old Venn diagram, those two actually overlap each other. So it is enough authoritarian and enough permissive where you get the best of both worlds. So the permissive is allowing your kids to have natural consequences for some things, but knowing when to step in when it's not safe or it's not healthy for them, and you have to be more of the authoritarian. So that authoritative, which is, I hate that all these words are so close together because it can be confusing for people, but that authoritative is kind of the balancing act between the two and makes the best of both worlds to find that balance and blend with both styles. So here's a wonderful tool that can come with this. If you are one of those people that you're like, I've tried gentle parenting, I don't know, it's not working, I don't know what else to do, but I know I don't want to, be controlling or whatever, this tool is very helpful because it essentially goes to walk your child through an issue that they're having and not wanting to be overly forceful, but not wanting to just step back and, essentially let them get away with whatever behavior or whatever's going on. You want to first validate. Step 1, validate. Step 2, set your boundary. Step 3, give them a choice. And step 4, follow through. The biggest thing I see when I watch just how people parent in general, and this is not like mom shaming or anything. It's just something I've noticed that a lot of parents know what to say, but they don't know what to do. And maybe it's not even that they don't know, or they just don't have the energy, or I know there's like fear of judgment when you're in public. There's so many things that contribute to this, but the follow through is not happening and it develops into more of a problem. So your validate can be like, I know you're mad. I can see you're mad. Or I can feel you're mad, or, whatever. Validate their emotions, whether you understand them or not, because you don't have to understand them. It is their feeling. You want to set the boundary. We're not doing that, right? We're not doing that. The answer is no. Give them a choice. You can do A or B. They may fight it and you may have to repeat yourself. You can do A or B. This is your options. That's that. And then the follow through would look like, if you choose neither, I will choose for you. That's where that boundary gets held up, and it's you stepping in. It is not, if you choose neither, you get nothing. Or if you choose neither, you have to go to your room or whatever. It's not something they have to do. It's if you choose neither, I will choose for you. Or if you choose neither, I will set this aside for you if you change your mind or, whatever. There has to be some kind of follow through that comes with that. I can't tell you how many times I see someone that's like, you're going to have to go outside, or I'm going to take this away. 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 We're going to leave. 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 And they never follow through. And so it's essentially teaching the child that they're full of shit. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's what it's teaching them. And it's not something obviously that they intentionally do. And I know sometimes they might say, we're going to leave, we're going to leave, we're going to leave. Like if you're grocery shopping and you're like, but I still have groceries I need to get. I totally get that struggle. And I mean, you have those choices. You can kind of disconnect and you can choose to have a meltdown between you and your kid and repair later, and try to be mindful of not repeating that pattern, because then that turns into, this is my choice, I'll just worry about it later. And then that can even get into a toxic cycle if you're not careful with it. Or you can grab the bare minimum of what you need and say, that's it. I told you we're going to leave if this is how it's going to be. And now we are leaving. And no matter how much people stare because they kick and scream, sometimes that's what you have to do. And I have had my fair share of having to do that. I've had to pick up a thrashing child and go into the bathroom at gymnastics one time because, it was like open gym, because she was in a full-blown meltdown. And I just had to take her away from everybody and help her regulate so we could co-regulate, essentially me being there so I could let her kind of hand off some of those emotions and help her breathe through it. Having those tools that validate that boundary, that choice, and that follow through is what's going to get you there. And it's the practice. It's not going to be perfect every time. It's the practice of getting into that rhythm where you know what to say, you know what to do, and you know what the end goal is and what the end consequence or actions are going to be. There is no yelling. There is no lecture. It is just leadership. And when you commit to something like that, where you follow through, there doesn't have to be, I told you a million times, because they know maybe your 1, 2, 3 isn't 1, 2, 3, I'm going to spank you, or 1, 2, 3, you go to timeout. Maybe your 1, 2, 3 is like, that's when I enforce the boundary. If I have to tell you on the third time, I will choose for you. When people search things like gentle parenting scripts, firm boundaries, respectful parenting, consequences, toddlers won't listen. They're not asking for softer parenting. They're asking for the structure that doesn't make them feel like a monster or that they're completely fucking everything up. Trend number 4 is tech boundaries become a family values conversation. Oh my gosh. They are shifting from screen time rules to family values, and I couldn't love this more. The AAP has been pushing the idea of family media plans for years, because take the iPad is not a strategy. That is a panic response. And so often that's like the biggest threat, right? I'm taking away your tablet. And we stopped doing that. My kids get way more tech time than they need to. And I also know that with people like us who don't have a village or support or downtime, because my kids go to bed with us because they're very attached kids and they don't like to be away from us. So it's kind of, if we wanted to sleep, we all have to go to bed at the same time. And it's just a thing. Anyway, neither here nor there. Because of things like that, I got to the point where I was like, don't even say that. Don't even put that into the conversation, because 1, it makes it worse. And 2, you're not going to take it away because you're going to want that time at whatever time, like if you need a minute, you're going to want them to have that. And most of the time my kids get it is at home anyway. Like we don't take them out and stuff. So it's usually when we want downtime to just veg out a little bit or watch a movie, and, we give them theirs. And so with that being the premise, it's so easy to be like, that's it. I'm taking your phone and your computer and all these things. And the reality is you want your kids to leave you alone sometimes, and you're probably going to give in. And then once again, you become the parent that's full of shit. And nobody wants to be that. But we don't know what to do. We're like, I have no idea. I'm just so stressed out. I don't want to think about it. I have no energy. I just want to be done with this. I'm taking it away because I want control. And it makes complete sense when you're burnt out and you're a parent who is exhausted. You just want things to go smooth. You want things to go quick. You don't want to have to sit there and think about it. I get it. It makes total sense. Okay, but I have to tell you about a game changer for all the multitasking, wonderful moms listening. Have you ever heard of KiwiCo crates? They're these incredible expert design projects that come straight to your door, ready to challenge and inspire your kids. It's not just about keeping them occupied, but igniting their imagination, enhancing their critical thinking, and encouraging their love for learning without adding to your already full plate. Each crate is a new adventure, an opportunity for your kids to dive into science, art, and more. Now, because I want every family to experience these moments of joy and discovery, I've got a little gift for you. When you use my special link, you'll get $10 off your first KiwiCo crate. Yeah, $10 off to explore, create, and learn together as a family. Don't miss this chance to make learning an adventure your kids look forward to every single month. Click the link in the show notes and let's make that moment in parenting a bit more aha with KiwiCo. We have more warnings in the ecosystem about youth and social media and mental health, which keeps reinforcing this same idea. Boundaries, tech-free zones, in-person friendships, modeling. Translation, it is not about control. It's about protecting connection and our kids' brain health and our brain health, because sometimes that's what that relates to. Sometimes they get it because we need a moment. Your kid isn't addicted to screens. They're actually addicted to the dopamine and the connection that they feel like they're getting from the screens. And that is something. That is, when you think of it that way, it is a wild concept. Our kids are on these things because they're playing the games. They have the excitement. My youngest talks to Mickey Mouse or Bingo and Rolly when she's watching Puppy Dog Pals. Like, she feels connected to the show and to the characters, and she loves that. And so when we really think about that, they are not chasing after a screen purely because it's a screen. If that were the case, they could stare at it without any games, without any social media, without anything, and they wouldn't care. They would just stare at it. But they're actually addicted to their friends, chatting with their friends, playing games with their friends, feeling connected to the characters. I grew up loving watching Friends. I felt connected to those characters because I was kind of an outcast, and I felt that is my comfort show. To this day, it is my comfort show. It's so readily available at their fingertips that it becomes obsessive. I want to give you a few values-based house rules that you could try out, or maybe you come up with your own. Maybe it'll spark an idea. Tech stays out of bedrooms. Sleep and nervous system values, right? We value our rest and we value our nervous system. And because we value our nervous system, we value our rest. Tech stays out of bedrooms. Now, we aren't the greatest with tech out of the bedroom. However, we used to turn on the TV and play games and all the things when we went to bed, and we no longer do that. When we go to bed, we read a book, we turn off all the lights, and we put on a sound machine. I do have my tech only because I read at night, and I don't read with a regular book because I have my baby in my bed and I'm not turning on all the lights. So I turn my light on my phone, my backlight on my phone way, way down, and I put on the black, background screen, and I read at night. So for me right now, that's the best thing I can do. But the rest of it, we don't watch TV in our bedroom unless it's like a sick day, or we don't really watch TV in the bedroom. I guess sometimes the girls, like during the day, because I have 3 of them, obviously. So some of them want to watch older kid shows and then the baby wants something else. So sometimes we'll switch it up a little bit that way. Number 2 could be one daily tech-free anchor. It could be dinner, the car, bedtime. That's where mine started. I was like, my kids will not have tech when we're out and about. I am not about to. I've done it maybe a handful of times. Like if we're at the doctor and it's like an appointment for me and I need them to like all sit still at the same time, I might do it. But outside of that, it hardly ever happens. Like my kids don't, we don't do it in the car unless it's like a very long trip. We just recently started implementing, I have like 2 older iPhones. I put Apple Music on and the Libby app so they could read books. But that's how we kind of adjusted for that for like longer drives, like when we go to see my sister, it's a couple hours. So we have things like that. So finding an anchor that works for you, whether it's bedtime, dinner, or the car, or, public or whatever. And then number 3, screens don't replace comfort. That's a big one. We soothe first, and then we decide if we want to do the screens. That is going to make a huge difference. It's not punishment to tell your kids that they can't have it. And I think when you look at it and you frame it in a way that's not punishment and it is values, it makes things go a lot easier and you feel a lot more connected to it. And I will tell you, if Pinterest is exploding with family movie night, cozy reading corners, no phones, bedroom, evening routines, slow mornings, that's definitely not aesthetic searching. That is families trying to build digital refuges. They want to know that they are building a cozy home. It makes so much sense. Number 5, AI enters parenting as the village, the babysitter, and the risk. This trend is a whole situation. I love AI, but parents are using general AI for emotional support and decision making, sometimes because therapy is expensive. which I can completely resonate with. I have a co-regulation bot that I have created to help people with the starting point of calming down. You're not going to heal everything through a bot, but you can at least use it as a tool, right? Parents are using these things sometimes because they're lonely, sometimes because it's 2 a.m. and no one's awake. Meanwhile, kids are interacting with AI companions and AI powered toys, and safety concerns are getting louder. There's a lot of research on this. AI is a tool, it is not a relationship. Convenient is not the same as safe. There has been so much talk around these things. And I mean, we see so many things about Roblox, right? And like games and this and that. And AI has been so ingrained that it's so quick. I actually saw a TikTok where this guy who's like, someone posted about cold starting their car, and the top search was like, what is cold starting a car? And he's like, you didn't understand in the first 10th of a second. Stop, wait. He's like, context clues. What would be cold starting a car? Think about it. Think about it. You know, he goes off on this whole like tangent, and it's true. Like, we don't even give ourselves the time. That's what he said at the beginning of it. We don't give our brains a fighting chance. It's so readily available that we're not taking the time to think through things. We just immediately go look it up or click on the little link and see what it says. Like, we have to be responsible with AI use. AI is great for scripts, for hard conversations, for meal planning, for routine scaffolding, idea generation, organizing all the chaos that comes with being a mom. There's so many great tools within AI as an assistant, but it can be so harmful when it is becoming an attachment substitution, when there are privacy risks, when there is adult content being made from children. There's misinformation because people aren't checking. They're not fact checking like we were taught to do when we were growing up. They just assume that it's correct. There is more emotional outsourcing. People are building connections with a robot. These things are very real and very scary. And we have to be intentional and mindful about the way we use AI because it's not going anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. But how can we come at this from a place that is grounded and intentional and leads with our values and is very aware of the pros and cons that come with it? With that, the tool that I think would go the best with this trend would be having some family AI rules. This is where the rules do come into play. And again, they can be framed and based off of your values, but having something specific set in place that is not gray area, but is a very solid foundation for how you want AI to be used within your home. So it could look like no private emotional conversations with bots. And with our kids, we do have to say things like that. Ask a human first. AI doesn't get the final say, the parents do. No AI friends without a conversation about safety. I have literally had people tell me they have been in arguments where people have gone to AI to have AI tell them what is wrong with the other person or why the other person is wrong. AI is biased just like anything else. And it is going to mirror and reflect back what you ask it to. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have the critical thinking in the context of a human being. And that is incredibly dangerous. And as the child of a narcissist, it is so dangerous to be in a place where people will literally use it as a tool and trust the quote unquote opinion of a robot. I have said this even about science, and you can agree or disagree or agree to disagree. You can find data within anything to prove your point. I mean, okay, that's maybe not anything, because I'm sure there's some stuff that out there that's like pretty black and white, but the majority of things you can find the research that says it's good, even if more of it says it's bad, right? Or vice versa. When you go looking, you will find it. That's true of a lot of things: mindset, science, AI, emotional connection. I mean, so many things. So using AI as a tool to tell somebody else why they're a broken human being is so, so harmful. So having those rules, the no private emotional conversations, asking a human first, making sure parents get the final say, and not having AI quote unquote friends without a conversation about the safety that comes with that, and maybe even coming up with rules within that rule is so important. And it's a tool that I think is going to explode in need for families. If people start searching AI bedtime stories, AI parenting help, AI schedules, it's not because moms want robots. It's because moms want a village that we don't necessarily have right now. The village is missing. So they are using what's available. And while it can be beautiful to give temporary relief, it's important that we don't let it be in a place of just running rampant. We can understand all of that without endorsing AI blindly. It can be very, very helpful. It can, give us some of those immediate wins, but we cannot blindly endorse something that can be so harmful. Number 6, always on mental health support becomes the expectation. Hail to the yeah. People don't want care only after the house is on fire. Okay. They want support between the hard moments. Spring Health calls it continuous care vibes, microcare, nudges, tools, coaching, check-ins. So you don't need a personal transplant. You need support between those large triggers. This is going to be explosive. And I've already started to see a lot of this in like work areas and things like that. There is going to be a bigger approach to having mental health support and someone to at the very least co-regulate with. Now, if we're talking always on, that becomes part of our day-to-day lives. It comes every single moment. And that tool could look like having a regulation rep, if you will, like you would exercise. You would do a morning grounding ritual or an intentional bedtime ritual, making sure that you are choosing times throughout the day. It might be mental health breaks. And I say breaks in terms of like, people take a smoke break. They run outside, they smoke a cigarette. Not that that's a good thing, but that's what I think of. It's a quick break, right? You could just go outside to do just that. Just take a deep breath. Give yourself a little neck massage on your vagus nerve. That could be a thing. That could be you being always on and being intentional. Having daily connection reps, right? 3-minute presence with your kid on the couch, like we talked about. Making sure you say no or you state something you need and not pushing it off every single day. Tiny reps build that muscle and it builds stability. And I mean, Pinterest, since we're talking about that, is already a micro care platform anyway. People literally search reset routines and morning routines and home sanctuaries and things like that. And that is all continuous care disguised as ideas. People literally are getting that care and that help, and it's just calling it idea pins, but they're referring to all of those resources. Number 7 is burnout evolving into quiet burnout. It's evolving into what some organizations are calling that quiet burnout, where you still show up and you still function, you still get stuff done, but inside you feel just hollow and irritable and numb, like you're acting in your own life. And this is one that it's really important to look with, because we're seeing all this explosive help in the mental health world, but I think we're also going to see a lot more silencing, because there's always that caveat of there's more help, but people are still going to feel broken. And then it may even make that worse. Lyra Health is tracking stuff like mental health related leaves and burnout patterns and things, and things like that, paired with broader mood reports like the Gallup reports. And essentially it's all pretty clear that people are not okay. They're just finding ways to cope. And so that said, I mean, if you're still getting things done, but you feel like you're dead inside, that is essentially quiet burnout. It's no different than when people talk about, what do they call it? High functioning anxiety or high functioning depression, right? People act like you seem fine, but it's like, yeah, but I'm dying inside. It's the same concept. It's just in a state of burnout. It's in the burnout context. So with that tool, it looks more like minimum viable mom. What is the minimum non-negotiables? Sleep basics, food basics, one connection moment a day, right? You could drop any of the extra obligations, the over-explaining, the perfection cleaning, learn to let go a little bit, whatever that looks like for you. And delegating. A lot of us don't like to do this, but the tasks that don't require your brain, these are the things you could delegate to AI, right? You don't want to think through your meal plan? Use AI. Let it help you. You don't want to think through how you can create a good flow for your week? Let AI help you. That's the things AI is great for. Taking away the extra mental load, right? It's like having the assistant you can't afford to normally pay for. So you use AI to come up with a bedtime plan. I used AI to make sourdough. Okay. I was like, this is my schedule. I was like, I get up at this time. I take my girls to jujitsu at this time. I go to gymnastics at this time. I just started my sourdough at this time. Um, and then I worked till this time because it was when I was still working at the school. And I put all of that stuff into it. This is what my day looks like. Where am I supposed to be feeding this thing and doing all of these things? Because I was like, what the heck? I have no idea. And it gave me a routine that worked for me. I didn't have to think through all of that. So you could delegate some of that stuff, the paperwork stuff, to AI, and also be mindful of privacy and those things, of course. That's a non-negotiable, but you can delegate to other people and you can delegate to AI to remove some of that mental load. And it's not giving up. That is literally survival wise. That is literally capacity. And that is showing the most love to yourself and to your family, making sure that you maintain the capacity for what matters the most. That's where I think this capsule wardrobe search came from, and like minimalist routines and things like that. Easy dinners, all of that, like Heige became a huge thing because it wasn't necessarily about laziness. People were looking for things to justify wanting to simplify and almost wanting to romanticize it, right? If they could find somebody else that had put something like that out there, it was validating the fact that they wanted it. And it wasn't them just not wanting it. It was like, oh, it's trendy now. We could do this. Look at what these people are doing. It is literally capacity management. Our last trend, number 8, is self-preservation getting normalized. Pinterest is straight up forecasting self-preservation, escapism, and nonconformity. And honestly, it all tracks. Moms are rejecting the perfection culture and choosing survival level practicality. People have been searching for relief, for escape, and for softness and slowness. I also want to note that like escapism isn't actually bad, because sometimes we think about that. Like, I just want to run away. It's not always a bad thing to want to escape something. Numbing, though, is a signal. Escapism can be a temporary pressure valve, but numbing is a very important thing that you should be paying attention to within your body. Self-preservation isn't selfish. It's actually how cycles break. We make sure that we take care of ourselves so that we have the capacity to do the things that we intentionally want to do. A tool for this would look like safe relief versus numbing. Asking yourself, does this help me come back to myself? That's a safe relief, right? Knowing, is this something that's going to nourish me and my well-being, or is it something that's just making me disappear and keeping me busy? That is the numbing side. So making sure that you're being very intentional and checking yourself in those patterns when you make decisions. Safe relief could look like a walk or a shower. I love my man. He makes fun of me because I take like the hottest showers, and he's like, how the hell? It's like Satan is like sitting on your head in there. I don't know. He's never said that, but I love hot showers, and it literally resets my nervous system. I didn't even realize that was a thing, but I've always taken very hot showers. I mean, hot. And that's part of it. It's just one of those things that helps me reset. But it could also be a show that makes you laugh or cry, because that helps you release those emotions. Journaling, prayer, meditation, calling a friend, reading in bed, all of those things can be considered a safe relief. It gives you that time to decompress. Numbing, however, is going to look like doom scrolling for 2 hours when you didn't want to. You just got sucked down a rabbit hole. Dissociating through constant noise. Yeah, that's why I got the loopy earplugs, because I was like, I can't do this. I either snap or I completely numb out and run away. And that wasn't okay for me. Over drinking, a lot of people I've seen have been starting to realize, while they may not necessarily be the context version of an alcoholic, they realize that it's become a coping mechanism for them, where they have to have a couple glasses of wine or, whatever. They have to have a glass in their hand to make them feel comfortable and to relieve themselves, is numbing. Overworking, workaholics, that is numbing. There is no shame here. Okay. Those things are just like, that's just the awareness of the things that are really going on. Working and being productive sometimes, when we relate all of these back to our stress responses, those are all things that look different in different people, but it still has that same commonality. If you're a perfectionist, you might be numbing out with perfection by your freeze response because you don't make a move. You're just like, I don't know, it's not perfect. I just won't do anything. Or you might be like, this needs to be perfect. So I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going and working on this thing and stay away from the actual problem. And that's a flight response, right? It could be, I need this thing to be perfect because otherwise people won't like me or they'll be upset. Fawn response. It could be, I need to make this thing perfect because if I don't, like everybody's in danger, or I just have to because I have to. There's your fight response. Like you just have to do it because you're like, that's the thing to do. It can relate on all of those levels and look very, very different. So awareness is a really important process when it comes to thinking of these trends. All of this to say, all of these trends, the mental health not being a side quest anymore, the connection crisis getting so much louder, the gentle parenting narrative of that you can never say no dying, the tech boundaries being more family values based, the AI entering the chat, the always on mental health support being the expectation now, the quiet burnout showing up more than it used to, and the self-preservation being normalized. All of these things are awareness. And we have a tiny plan now. Knowing what we know, your plan can be not a new you, but a more supported you as we go into the new year. We can pick one from each of these categories, right? I'm going to give you some categories. I want you to think about this. You could write it down, you could jot it in your phone, whatever. But as we're sitting here and as we're talking, you can pick one from each one of these categories. Regulation could be like a long exhale. It could be a bath. It could be doing some yoga, whatever that looks like. Regulation. Connection could be your rituals with your kid. It could be doing the dishes. It could be having a game night, whatever that looks like. Your boundary, a small step in the right direction. What's a non-negotiable boundary you choose to hold every time? There is no movement. It is your boundary. Tech, a free tech anchor moment every day, whatever that looks like. Even if it's 5 minutes, start small. It's fine. Just start somewhere. That's how you build that muscle. And relief. One safe and healthy relief thing that brings you back home to yourself, that gets you back in your body, that allows you to maintain the capacity that you need to manage all of the things that you have going on. And that's it. That is your entire plan for 2026. Looking at all of these things coming up, how can you pick teeny tiny moment to moment things that will support you through your year? That's all of it. You don't need to become perfect. You just need support. And really, we can't control everything outside of us. We can control ourselves. We can make changes within ourselves. So the best way to go about this is to choose it for ourselves. How can I regulate? How can I find a way to connect with my family? How can I set a boundary for myself? How can I help tech, right? And you may not have to set a boundary with your kids yet. Maybe you set it with yourself so you can model that behavior. How can I make sure that I am giving myself the relief that I so badly need, even if it's a little bit, and even if it doesn't seem like it's enough yet, over time, it will add up. Consistency compounds. My coach has said that. We're going to be the entire main character and make our healing and our family the whole ass job, the whole focus, because it matters. And that's how you do all the cycle breaking that you grew up knowing you wanted to do. Alrighty, friend, that is it for today's episode. And if you needed this, same, truly. If this episode hit home for you, share it with another mom who's in the trenches right now. We are building a community, one that many of us never had, and your voice helps so much more than you know. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on what's coming next. And if you feel like leaving a review, I won't say no. All right, babe, take a breath, drink some water, give yourself some grace, and I will catch you on the next episode. Keep reclaiming yourself and your family, one messy, magical step at a time.